Hello viewers, once again it's me, Ewaenruwa Nomaren, and this is my channel, It Pays to Fear God. This is where we learn about God, His beloved Son Jesus Christ, and their kingdom purpose, the three most important subjects that we can ever learn about, talk about, or discuss in the entire Holy Bible according to John chapter 17 verse 3. The subject that we're going to be learning about today is captioned Rage and Its Consequences. However, before we get into that, I once again have a tune that some of us might enjoy. And while the tune's playing, please try to subscribe and click the notification bell to be notified when we make future uploads. Once again, the subject that we are going to be learning about today is captioned Rage and Its Consequences. And I'll be inviting my brother to come share some information on this subject.
Rage is a very common human emotion, so it is important we understand what it means in the Bible. We have to understand whether we deal with rage the right way, because rage is a big part of who we are, the propensity of us to get angry, so it is important we know how to control it if we have a problem. Now, I'm going to go into some examples of people in the Bible who were angry and were punished. For example, there was King Asa. He was a righteous king, according to 2 Chronicles chapter 14 verse 2, but eventually in 2 Chronicles chapter 16 verse 10, he got mad at a prophet who told him that because he relied on foreign nations to help him instead of God, he would suffer war for the rest of his rulership. So Asa had that prophet thrown in prison. And so, in verse 12, God gave a foot disease to Asa that he would have to live with until death. And his death came pretty soon after Hananiah talked to him and Asa got mad. Also, there's the story of King Uzziah in 2 Chronicles chapter 16. He was also a good king, but eventually he grew proud, and one day he decided that he would offer a sacrifice to God without the priest. And the priest told him, no, you can't do that, in verses 17 and 18. But Uzziah refused to listen to him then. In fact, he got mad, and as he was holding the sacrifice tool, he ended up having leprosy on his forehead. And that meant that he had to be rushed out of the temple because that made him unclean. And unclean people could not be in the temple. And not just that, he lost his right to rule. So his son Jotham got to rule the kingdom until his death. And of course, there is the all-familiar story of Cain and Abel in Genesis chapter 4. In verses 3 to 5, Cain and Abel both gave offerings to God, but it was only Abel's offering that God accepted. So, Cain was naturally mad, but God said that he should not let sin attack him, take over him, in verses 6 and 7. But Cain went and killed his brother, in verse 8, and God punished him, in verses 11 and 12, with him having to have a wandering life and with him having less agricultural success. So the question is now, why can anger be so bad? Why is it listed as one of the things we should avoid as Christians in Galatians chapter 5 verses 19 to 21 and Colossians chapter 3 verses 8 to 10? Well, it's because of the ability it has to make us sin. According to Proverbs chapter 15 verse 18, an angry man stirreth up strife, and a furious man aboundeth in transgression. Anger can make it easier for us to sin. However, notice how I haven't said that anger is completely bad. It can only possibly cause sin. It may lead to sin. But anger isn't all that bad. It can actually be good in some cases. For example, those 3 men I mentioned earlier weren't just punished because of their anger. They were punished because their anger led them to sin. And God hates sin, according to 1 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 6, and Job chapter 4, verse 8. When wicked people sow wickedness, they will reap wickedness. When they do wicked things, they will be punished by God. For the wages of sin is death, Romans chapter 6, verse 23. And this means that God is angry when he punishes people, because obviously when you make somebody pay for what they did, you're not happy, you're not sad, no, you're angry with what they did. God can get very angry sometimes, according to Nahum chapter 1 verse 2. And he's used that anger to punish people in the past. For example, in Numbers chapter 16 verses 46 to 49, he was angry with the way the children of Israel were behaving, and he killed 14,000 people, not including the people that he already destroyed in the Korah incident. And in Numbers chapter 14, earlier, God was thinking about ending Israel completely, specifically in verse 12, and starting afresh with Moses, but Moses convinced him otherwise. And it's also important we look at the story of the wicked husbandman in Matthew chapter 21, verses 33 to 41, because that shows how angry God was with the Pharisees. The parable goes like this. There was a householder who sent some workers to go till his fields. He owned a vineyard and he wanted people to harvest it. But then those servants sent away all the other servants that the householder sent to collect the vineyard. They wouldn't allow the householder collect the fruits of his own vineyard. So then he thought, oh, I'll send my son. They'll respect him because he came from me. But then they thought, if we kill this son, then the vineyard will be ours. And they killed him. So the householder went and killed them and rented out the vineyard to other tenants. And, as we know, the interpretation goes like this. The householder is God, and his field is Israel, the children of Israel. So he said, okay, I want to harvest my field. I want to get the fruits of it, my people's worship. So I'm going to send people, the prophets, to teach them. And send some leaders, the Pharisees, to harvest them, teach them until I send my prophets. But then these Pharisees, these religious leaders, they just killed all the prophets, sent them out, didn't listen to them, leading to a situation where God can only now send his son, thinking that they would listen to him. But the Pharisees went and killed Jesus so that they could have complete spiritual authority over the Israelites. So God said that he would destroy them. He did. In subsequent decades, the Romans came, destroyed the temple, destroyed them. And then he rented out this vineyard, which became not just Israel, but the whole world. And he used the saints to harvest them this time. So as you can see, God can get mad. And he isn't just getting mad in the past. He's also getting mad in these last days. According to Isaiah chapter 13, verse 9. And how is he getting mad? Why is he getting mad, more importantly? Let's start with why first. God is angry with a lot of people in these last days because of the inventions they're creating. Lo, this only have I found, that God hath made man upright, but they have sought out many inventions. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 29. Abortion, all kinds of things, laws that are against God, tolerance of other religions. People are just ignoring their laws, God's laws, and creating new laws for themselves, laws that they made up, inventions. And so God is going to destroy those inventions, according to Psalms chapter 106, verse 29. Thus they provoked him to anger with their inventions, and the plague brake in upon them. The United Nations is trying to create all these organizations, but they won't work to rule the people. Children will rule, according to Isaiah chapter 4, verse 3. And I will give children to be their princes, and babes to rule over them. Eventually, no one will want to rule, according to Isaiah chapter 4, verses 6 to 7, throwing leadership in complete disarray. People are trying to stop earthquakes and famines and save people, but it won't work. There will just be more of that stuff, according to Matthew chapter 24, verse 7. And despite all the ways that people are trying to stop war, there will just be more and more war, according to verse 6 of that Matthew chapter 24. And also, it's important for us to look at the big picture here. If anger can be bad in some cases, and anger can be good in some cases, then what is the idea for us? How should we be angry? Well, the key to dealing with our anger is to be able to manage it. And let's look at the end of Ephesians chapter 4 for some answers. Ephesians chapter 4 verse 26 reads, "Be ye angry, and sin not, neither let the sun go down upon your wrath." Anger shouldn't be something that we can start grudges over. We hate someone for years because we were angry with something that they did so long ago. No, we have to be able to calm down and make amends with people who might have offended us. Anger has to stop eventually, or else it is even easier for it to lead into sin. It is just better for us to make amends with people, according to Proverbs chapter 19, verse 11. The discretion of a man deferreth his anger. And next is a verse that might confuse people, but I'll go through it. Verse 31. "Let all bitterness and anger and wrath and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you." Get it out of here. This anger and wrath isn't all anger and wrath, but it is the wrath of man. Just humanly angry anger that has nothing to do with God and is actually against God. "For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God." James chapter 1 verse 20. We have to banish such wrath, because that will lead us to sin against God. Rather, we should have righteous wrath. We should have disciplinary wrath, like parents should have for their children, according to Proverbs chapter 22, verse 15, and Proverbs chapter 23, verses 13 to 14. "Withhold not correction from a child." It is important that we should use anger to discipline others who aren't following God's rules. But other forms of anger, like us hating someone and becoming angry with someone because we're envious of them, no, not allowed, not acceptable. Instead, we should take verse 32. We have to be kind. we have to be loving. We have to forgive others, not be angry, not be humanly angry. We have to forgive others, because that is what the chosen ones of God are supposed to do, according to Colossians chapter 3, verses 12 to 14. In conclusion, wrath can be good or wrath can be bad. It depends on how we manage it. If we know how to use wrath and anger and rage in God's favor, then we will be able to serve God properly and not be snared into sin. And that is the end of my talk on this subject, rage and its consequences. Thank you for listening.
So that, my viewers, is some information on the subject rage and its consequences. We have to understand anger isn't bad, but anger that is uncontrollable is only one letter away from danger, as the popular saying goes. Like I said, anger isn't bad because people who cannot discipline are considered foolish in the Bible because they are not replicating God's image. They are not replicating the way God lives. If we read Malachi chapter 3 verse 6, he doesn't change from his principles, and his principles are, he will allow you to do your thing so long as you remember him and keep his laws and commandments. But if you rebel against him, then he is going to have anger against you once your cup is full. He gives you time, he gives you that rope, but if you let that run to the end, then once your cup is full, God has all means to do whatever he wants with you, like he did with Pharaoh, Exodus chapter 7 to 11, like he's done with all people who have rebelled against him. In Isaiah chapter 28 verse 21, the anger of the Lord was discussed there in these last days, where it states, for the Lord shall rise as a Mount Perazim, he shall be wroth as in the valley of Gibeon. Then he may do his work, his strange work, and bring to pass his act, his strange act. And I discussed this in my video, the act of God, the idea that God is angry in these last days. He is the only one qualified to take vengeance, and people that he gives also the ability to do. If we read Romans chapter 12 verse 19. To conclude this episode, I once again have a tune that some of us might enjoy. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something most importantly. Please try to subscribe, share this video, and click the notification bell to be notified when we make future uploads. Thank you for listening.